So, do you need remote access to one of your PCs across your network, or I guess across the internet? I think this is a question that a lot of people in the home lab space come up with. You're taking some desktop class PC, maybe a mini PC, and you're using it as your home server, but now you don't have the same remote access benefits of using like a real server with IPMI. And that's where a lot of these web-based Ethernet KVMs come in. So a keyboard video mouse, a KVM, this connects up to the HDMI output of your system, emulates a keyboard and mouse, and lets you fully remote access it as if you were sitting in front of it. That includes getting into the BIOS, loading new operating systems, stuff like that. So today, Appleard, the KVM guy, I'm taking a look at the LeafKVM. This recently went through crowdfunding. It's relatively similar in concept and hardware to the JetKVM. I'll get into those similarities later in the video. But if you need a Ethernet-based IP KVM, then maybe this is for you. So come along and see what I think. So I got the unit here hooked up for test. I got my mini PC turned on, ready to go. And I got this overhead camera view, so you guys can see what's on the screen at the same time as I do. This is the same one I've used for a number of KVM reviews now. It runs Kali Linux. I have found that testing with Linux occasionally brings out compatibility bugs if these KVMs have only been tested with Windows before. But I think it's important to test with every operating system, including running in the BIOS, so I'm going to do that, of course. So down here on the screen, we got a couple things useful to us. So I'm running at 1080p 60, obviously. It actually can sort of show me the screen here, which I think is cool. Let's see, okay, so I can zoom in and out, see what's going on. If I zoom in, then I guess I can drag it over. Can I click? Doesn't look like I can click, but I can at least see what's on the screen. So if we had an error message or something, I could zoom into it and read it just from the touchscreen. I think that's kind of a unique feature. I haven't seen anyone actually put the video display onto their mini screen. A number of these KVMs have little screens here. Most time they show you the IP address, their status, if they're connected, which is all really useful information if you're trying to debug this. But usually you then go to your laptop to actually use it, or your phone maybe. I have the option of connecting it to Wi-Fi and Ethernet. If I click on Ethernet here, it shows the IPv4 address. As far as I can tell, it's not supporting IPv6 yet. I guess we'll see in a packet capture later. And over here in the web UI, so we got a logo here, LeafKVM.rs. It looks a lot like JetKVM. So I'm going to come out and say it. Software is based on JetKVM. That's perfectly fine. JetKVM is an open source software. But I like to see what they've changed, how they've improved JetKVM, and if they're contributing any of that upstream. So it looks like IPv6 actually is here. I just have to, well, enable it. It'd be nice if that was enabled by default, but it's not. And even with IPv6 enabled, it's still not showing up here in the touchscreen, still just v4. And it's also not showing my, I don't think I have, oh, I can scroll this way. Okay, so here I have Tailscale and Rust-S, but I still don't see my host name. So for me, the easiest way to connect to these things is usually by mDNS. So this should be broadcasting its host name on multicast DNS over the network. Then you connect it with like LeafKVM.local or something like that. And it'd be nice if it was displaying what that address is on the screen so you can connect to it. But it's right here. It's LeafKVM 5DD8. Oh, it's disabled. We'll set that to auto. So now I should be able to go to LeafKVM 5DD8.local. Where the fuck? Let's see. So it looks like it's not responding over v4. What do we try? Ping 6. And we're not getting that one either. And how about DNS service discovery? Looks like we are not advertising HTTP. These are other things. So I set this to auto and hit save, and it didn't save. So let's go back and set that again. Save settings. And reboot. So this setting will not save. What if I try v4 only instead of default or auto? So again, it says network setting saved. Yeah, so I cannot get this mDNS setting to save. Something about it is not saving, so I enable it even if I try IPv4 only. If I go ahead and refresh, it's back to disabled. So I'll try auto, nothing. So this is a feature that did work on the JetKVM that was pretty useful. So it's really sad to see mDNS not working. I know a lot of people in like corporate or managed environments really hate mDNS. And in those scenarios where you have full inventory of all of your devices and your network, etc., that makes sense. But if I'm taking this and I'm plugging it directly into my laptop, like a link local situation or something like that, or I mean, realistically, you're probably not buying this device in a managed situation either. You're probably going through your vendor and getting IPMI access or things like that. In that scenario, mDNS is perfect and we should be using it. I have fucked up. I clicked on Rust Desk and now I can't get back. So like JetKVM, they also have the option for SSH and also have this web terminal here, but I can't actually get the web terminal to work. So it's just not responding. But SSH still works, so we can SSH in. We have nothing running, but I can cd2/ and see there's stuff going on here. And they actually decided to use systemd, which is an interesting choice for me, but that is their init process, is systemd. So they're still using Dropbear for SSH. They have the GUI service, LeafKVM service, so I think this one is doing the touchscreen and this one is doing the web UI, but I'm not sure if that's correct. And then obviously we're using Journal and networkd for network configuration. So very interesting choice to me to be running in a build root environment with full systemd. So usually you'd run something really minimum like BusyBox, IF up down for networking. Or if you're writing a Golang process that you know you only have a couple interfaces, you could just do the interface management directly in process. Maybe not even using a network manager. But they're using network manager, or not network manager, systemd, networkd as their network manager, and systemd to manage their services, which is a bit heavyweight for a thing like this, but I guess it could be nice if you try to hack it. So you guys love packet captures, so I'm going ahead and started one here. Got out one of my MikroTik routers here. This is the HAP-AXS, so it's just like the HEX-S, but with Wi-Fi. And so I use this for all kinds of Ethernet, Wi-Fi testing, stuff like that. So I put this guy in capture mode. He's just acting as an Ethernet switch, but he's capturing every packet on this yellow wire here. So as soon as I power on the KVM, we will get a log of everything it does. So then I'm going to connect to it, do a little bit of a test, and we can see if we can see what it looks like. So I'll just refresh the connection. Okay, looks like we came up fine. We got video. And I can look in settings, I guess. Just flip through some of these. Maybe actually I'll go here and try to apply this setting and see what that looks like on the network. Okay. Okay, so starting right off, it did a DHCP discover. Did that a couple times. Looks like it's advertising itself over LLMNR, which is nice. Someone else is advertising themselves over mDNS. Let's see who this is. Oh, Shelly Color Bulb, okay. Okay, so here's the actual DHCP transaction. So it does discover, offer, request, ACK, and it ends up with the address .111. So it is doing LLMNR, but it doesn't appear to be doing mDNS. So here I'm connecting to it over IPv4. This is my TCP. And then we end up with HTTP. And then it switches to WebSocket, which makes sense. For the actual video traffic, it initially does stun, followed by DTLS. This is all standard WebRTC stuff. This uses WebRTC, by the way, in case you didn't know, but just about everything that does video on the web uses WebRTC, so this is totally normal stuff. One thing I didn't see anywhere in this process is time. So we got an IP address with DHCP, and we advertised LLMNR. And then this is my web browser connecting. We've got DTLS connecting. So in this entire log, that is all it does. So we do the DHCP, we do LLMNR, and the associated IGMPv3 to get to that group. And then we do TCP to load the web page, and then we do DTLS WebRTC for everything else. So it didn't reach out to a single internet site, it didn't connect to NTP, it didn't try to check for updates, nothing. At least not in the time frame that I monitored it. So I do know there is an update checker that might run on the client browser, not sure about that. But they haven't added anything that's reaching out anywhere, so that's really nice to see. So another thing I want to try, virtual media. So I come over here, let's add some media. I gotta upload a file now. And let's see. Okay, our Ubuntu is uploading 6.07 gig. So this particular one I have has 16 gigs of internal storage. However, the version that they're going to ship is going to have SD cards instead. So you have to carry the cost of flash instead of them, which Sorry that flash prices are so wild these days. Memory prices in general are just off the charts as I'm recording this. But it can fit Ubuntu, which is over 6 gigs, and a lot of lower-end KVMs that have less memory can't do that. Now, given that it will eventually have an SD card, you can probably put a whole bunch of operating systems on there if you want to pay for a really big card, and I guess that's your choice. So it's doing something a little bit weird now. So if I click on this, it shows me my virtual medias. And notice that it shows 6.1 gigs consumed up here, but no media. And over here on the screen, it shows that it uploaded it. The progress bar didn't move. I don't know. Is it done or not? What do you think? Over here in Wireshark, it's clearly not sending a ton of data. I mean, this is real time here, so I guess we hit refresh and see what happened. Okay, storage mount, continue. Okay, so it shows it is used, but there's no images. So what the hell happened? Okay, so where are our files stored? I think they're stored in user data. Storage images, probably. Okay, so it's a .incomplete. So it took some space, and then it, I don't know, broke, I guess? I guess we'll just delete it. So I refreshed. Did my storage come back? Yeah, okay. So let's upload the Ubuntu image. I would love if it did 372 megabytes a second. This is functionality that worked in JetKVM, that they somehow broke. I don't know how they broke it, but they broke it. It is the next day. I'm back at this again. I did a little bit of testing offline and found that the problem seems to be related to Safari. So I was not able to upload an ISO to the LeafKVM in Safari. I got out my JetKVM, it's over there off camera, just to make sure that this wasn't a bug in the original JetKVM, and that worked fine. So somehow something they've done has broken file uploads in Safari, but not in Firefox. And that's a bit concerning to me because Safari is the second most popular browser by rankings, and it's the only browser available on iOS. So essentially this won't work on iOS. I don't know how many people are using their iPad with it or things like that, but Safari doesn't work for now. But I got this going on now, so I can add new media. We'll mount this, and I now have the Ubuntu desktop that we can mount. And then this should wake up again. We'll just reboot that guy, or just hard power him off, whatever, I don't know. Also a reminder, I need external power here, either external USB or power over Ethernet, because this guy is powered by USB. Now some, like desktop class systems, do provide power output over their USB ports, or at least some of their USB ports when they're powered down. And I found that with the original JetKVM review, and a lot of these other KVMs, a lot of these mini PCs do turn off their USB power when they're powered off. So it depends on the system and what you're using, if you'll need external power or not. But if you do, LeafKVM supports PoE. So power this guy on. There we go. We're in the BIOS. Okay, so I want to boot override into File CD Gadget, and let's go ahead and do that. Okay, looks like it came up. This is actually not that slow, it only took like 3 minutes. I also, of course, can see the Ubuntu here, and I'm going to do something neat for you guys. So watch this. Oh, that's neat. We got an Ubuntu screen here. So if I zoom in a bit, we can see we got a kernel panic, and we can figure out what happened. It just says sysrec trigger crash, though. So I think we've seen enough of how it works. Time for Teardown. Got the iFixit toolkit. This is like pretty amazing. Just taking a look at the reverse side, these look like they're hacks, not torques, and we have 4 of them. Looks like I need, is that a 2.5 mil? 2 mil. Oh, I'm good. Okay, let's go ahead and take these 4 screws off. So both sides of this enclosure, top and bottom, are CNC milled. And there is a plastic piece here for the Wi-Fi antenna that on my prototype is 3D printed. So I'm not sure if this will be injection molded or still printed, but I should be able to pop the top off now. Do I have 2 more screws down in there? Is that it? So that's probably going to relieve this cover. Oh yeah. And there's the Wi-Fi antenna, which looks like it sticks. I don't know if you can see it, but it sticks there. So it's just single channel, so it doesn't have MIMO. Oh, I see what's holding me up. It's thermal pads. You probably can't see it in there, but all the components are heat sunk to the top. So I just have to pull, I think. He's too fat to fit in there. Oh, there we go, there we go. Okay, so the screen has come out. Let me set this all down so we can see what's going on here. So I guess first piece I got, this bit of the enclosure. I heard that it's CNC milled, and this is kind of a lot of milling to get these diagonal slots here. You have to mill it from both the top and the bottom. And I don't know, maybe it's die cast, but this version of it looks like it's been sandblasted, so there's no machining marks. So maybe it was milled, maybe it will be die cast, not sure, but it's a fairly expensive part to make. So next up on the board itself, I've got the LCD. They've got a little 3D printed riser here. I assume this would be injection molded when it gets beyond the prototype, but maybe not for a small piece like this. They've got a little riser board for power over Ethernet, and we can see all of the other key components here. So that is not, I mean, that probably works, but it's touching 3 parts and it's not really making great contact on either of these two. But I wouldn't expect them to be massively hot. I think one of them is the RAM and one of them is the Rockchip CPU. And then this guy here is a Realtek Wi-Fi module. So that's doing Wi-Fi. And then right here is where the SD card will be instead of eMMC. And then they ended up replacing the RJ11 with a USB Type A, USB 2. This lower piece is, well, it's also silkscreen, but it's again milled, I believe. So this piece can't just be like a stamping or something because it's milled for these screw holes, things like that, where it's pocketed. And then it looks like this doesn't need to be pocketed for any reason. I'm not sure if that's just for weight or if there's some other reason they pocketed this here. There's also corresponding pockets up here. I don't know if they were planning on dowel pins or something that goes here. And same on the other side, there's 2 more pockets here that serve no apparent purpose. So now let's see if I can get it back together. So this has to fish through there, and then I should be able to just drop this on. And it should, yeah, there it goes. Okay, that was not as hard as I thought it would be. So then I'll screw this back down and then I'll get the antenna back on. I'm not really a fan of hex head screws. I prefer Torx, but hex head's not bad. For some bonus content, here is the VGA adapter. I know I didn't talk about this much in the video, but they sent it to me as well, and it hooks up over HDMI, so you still need an HDMI extension cable, because it's an HDMI female here, and then it's got a VGA male to plug into your server. And this is self-powered by the unit, and it also has a USB Type-C where you can power it as well if you need additional VGA to HDMI conversion separate from the unit. I don't have any VGA systems to test with. I've gotten all this legacy stuff out of my life, which is really unfortunate because this is a really useful thing that I think a lot of people buying this overlook, is VGA compatibility for old servers. Now this is definitely a prototype. It's assembled with Phillips screws, and the case is 3D printed. So I guess we'll try number 1 Phillips. Okay, this is a relatively simple board, so there's no population on this side. It actually looks like one big ground plane. So on this side over here, we can see LeafKVM self-powered VGA to HDMI version 0.2. So they've got this, I guess the micro coaxes are terminating into this connector here. I'm not sure if this cable actually uses coax or not. It's supposed to be coaxes for the 3 color signals. But those go into this connector, and then they've got a little bitty chip in there and some tiny resistors. So what does this guy say on it? Can we read it together? Macrosilicon. Okay. I don't know if you can read the model of that chip, but that's the converter they're using to go VGA to HDMI. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the LeafKVM? So first off, this unit that I have is a prototype. They made a couple of changes in April that are not reflected in my unit here. So this unit has an RV1106 that is a single core ARM Cortex-A7. That is the exact same chip used in the JetKVM. Also, it supports 1080p 60 resolution over HDMI. It has the same RJ11 port as the JetKVM. I don't know if the pinout's the same, I don't have a pinout for it. And essentially, this is a very nice clone of the JetKVM. They're using the JetKVM's web UI and things like that. However, they made a couple of changes in April, allegedly based on supply chain issues, which totally makes sense given that AI has sort of wrecked everything in the chip industry these days. And so they've upgraded from the 1106 to 1126, which gives us a quad-core Cortex A53 processor. They've also slightly upgraded the HDMI chip to one that can do 4K 30. So you could do 4K at 30, or you can still do 1080p, I believe up to 90 FPS with this chip. One other major change since my unit is they replaced the 16 gigs of internal eMMC with a micro SD card slot. So now you are responsible for providing your own storage. I obviously don't have that demonstrated to you. They also changed out the JetKVM console port, or I guess remote access port, with a USB Type A, which just carries standard USB 2. And so I guess they're going to make a line of USB 2 based accessories that are truly USB based, not just abusing that connector. So with all of those hardware changes, I think they're distancing themselves a little bit from their JetKVM origins. Now also, I was not aware that the software on this is not actually entirely based on JetKVM. So the Linux image for this is different. They're running systemd, they're doing their own network configs, that kind of stuff, which was done differently in JetKVM. Also, apparently the whole backend has been written in Rust, and they're only using the web UI from JetKVM and not the whole software stack. So I guess that explains why a lot of the configuration options in the JetKVM-based web UI didn't work. So their backend hasn't implemented all of the features that the JetKVM frontend expects yet. And I expect those things to be ironed out by the time they ship, at least I hope they are. Issues like the mDNS, things like that. Now as for open source, they do have open source obligations for a lot of the software. They've already posted on their GitHub the kernel variant that they're using, which I believe came from Rockchip. Yeah, so kernel 6.1 from Rockchip. So that is open, and some of their build root configs are open. The Rust-based software is not open yet, but they claim it will be. And their changes to the JetKVM web UI are also not open yet. Again, they claim they will be. And they must release those by the time they ship these to units. As soon as they've delivered this to anyone, I mean, technically I should have access to it, but as soon as they've delivered units to anyone, they're obligated to release the source code under AGPL. Now this guy does have very nice hardware. I'm very impressed with the build quality. I'm a bit concerned that the cost to manufacture these milled aluminum pieces might be a bit high. Now JetKVM used die castings, which is a cheaper way to do it. Not like less quality, but just cheaper in volume than CNC milling. On their updates on Crowd Supply, they've mentioned these are CNC milled. So I'm not sure if they're going to stick with that long term or not, but that's a relatively expensive way to produce it. So I'd be concerned about their not their longevity, but their longevity as a company. Are they going to be able to afford continuing to make these at the price points that are competitive with other units with the milled housing? It is a very nice housing though, and the touchscreen is also very nice. I like that they have the ability to show the screen. If you have a kernel panic or something, you can come up to it and see what's going on without having to log in remotely. Although the whole purpose of this thing is to log in remotely, so in some sense, I don't think the screen is even necessary at all. But it is nice to be able to find the unit with the IP address on the screen and stuff like that. I do wish I was able to test the VGA cable more. VGA really is a feature that a lot of these KVMs lack native support for, being that they're based on HDMI. Now, to me, that's a bit of a double-edged sword. If you're using a server that still has VGA, you likely have some option to do IPMI there, or you're using a very, very old system. So essentially all new consumer systems are using DisplayPort or HDMI, which are both compatible with HDMI input generally. And they have been for like a decade now. So a lot of server-end systems still use VGA, of course, but if you're using a VGA system in production, it's probably rather dated, which would make sense for you buying one of these things instead of using an enterprise product, but it might also be good time to consider upgrading. So hopefully I haven't been too harsh at this as a JetKVM clone. Now I really do see this as a JetKVM clone that's trying to fix a lot of the issues that JetKVM saw. So they fixed the power input problem. JetKVM includes a power splitter in case your computer can't supply power, but they've just got 2 USB ports natively, so you can plug into the second one. They've also got power over Ethernet. And again, I think most people will not need power over Ethernet. Most systems do have some port where they can supply USB, but not all mini PCs do. The mini PC that I tested with doesn't have any power output. Most desktop class systems do have some USB ports that are powered on full time, but depending on what you're using this with, it might not be a guarantee. Now they do also have Wi-Fi, which I think is a very nice touch. It can act as an access point or a station, which again is a very nice touch. So you could have this thing as like in your tool bag, you plug it in, it powers up, it provides a Wi-Fi network. You then use that Wi-Fi network from your laptop or from your tablet or something like that. Again, remembering that the web app doesn't work perfectly with Safari, so iPads might have a little bit of problems. So that is what I think about the Leaf KVM. I'm definitely excited to see them into the market. They're definitely providing very nice hardware. The price point for this guy is $119. At least that is what he was listed for on crowdfunding. So it says $119 free US shipping or $12 shipping worldwide. That is from Crowd Supply. The crowdfunding campaign ended already and they were fully funded, so they are going to production. That does mean you can't buy them for a couple of months while they fulfill all their backer orders and stuff like that. But it is coming. It is a real product. It is hopefully really shipping. I have one in my hand. That feels very nice. So this is the Leaf KVM. If you want to hear more of my KVM reviews, I got a playlist, maybe link up here, maybe link down there, something like that. I've taken a look at a lot of the other hardwares in this class, and essentially all of them are trying to compete against the JetKVM. JetKVM is one of the first to sort of launch this low-cost KVM market, and it's done a very good job at it. So you can see my JetKVM reviews. I've also done some comparison of some of the other models. Obviously this one's not included because this one's newer than that video, but maybe I'll update it in the future or something like that. If you want to chat with me about networking or whatever, Discord server, link down below. I love meeting and talking with new people there. I'm also on Mastodon, which is sort of the replacement for the Dead Bird site. Link down below to that as well. And I guess I'll see you guys on the next adventure.